Okay, everybody, we're going to call this meeting to order, please. October 9th, 2024, the CIC meeting is now called to order. Christina, do we have a quorum?
Vilma, will you take roll for us? We can stand.
It's not working. Diana Martinez.
Here.
Frank Gonzalez. Julian Villarreal. Adelita Cantu. John Kelly. Tom Corser. Vanessa Alvarado. Steve Bonnet. Audra Clapsaddle. Robert Zapata. Aaron Stein. Christopher Fullerton. Sarah Villarreal. Frank Dunn. Peter Onfer. Maria Nelson.
Here.
Madam Chair, we have quorum.
All right, the meeting will proceed. We're going to do a welcome for Lisa Lewis. She is CPS Energy's Chief Administrative Officer and Interim CEO for Rudy, who's out of...
I'm acting today.
Acting CEO. Well,
like
okay.
old soap operas.
Well, I
Playing the
just
role
bumped
today.
you up. I just bumped you up, okay?
Thank you.
Thank
you. On behalf of Rudy, I'd like to welcome you all. We appreciate your service. If you've been with us before, thank you for your continued service. If you're new to this group, welcome. We're glad to have you. If you'll indulge me for just a moment, I'll give you my welcome for new employees a little bit. When I first meet new employees, inevitably when you work with or on behalf of or for CPS Energy, the first thing you get asked for is if you get a discount on your service. And the answer is no, not because we don't love you and not because we're cheap, but because within a rate class, every customer pays the same rate, even if you work here. So everybody pays the same rate within their class group, in residential as a group. Secondly, the next thing we always get asked is, why is my bill so high? And inevitably, people feel their bill is high regardless of what it is. And so, you're getting ready for the holidays are right ahead. So I'll give you my holiday spiel and how I cover this at the Thanksgiving table at my house with extended family. So each of us as a customer pays a rate for our service that is in general better than what you see across most of this country and very comparable in this state. But it doesn't stop there. In addition to our reasonable and affordable rates, your dollars stay in this community compared to a for-profit entity that would pay shares to dividend holders out in the world. All of those dividends paid right back into this community through our payment to the city of San Antonio, on track to be something $400 million-ish in this year in that neighborhood. And so all of those dollars stay local and help to support the services that we all in this community use, regardless of which part of this community you live in. You're driving on these roads, you're using these libraries, et cetera, et cetera. And then lastly, I'm proud to say, as the shared services leader who is responsible now for supply chain, we also invest in doing as much business locally as we can and working with our area businesses and community partners, to the tune of almost $1 billion paid for materials and services to businesses in this area in last year. So when I finish that spiel, either they're so exhausted from hearing those facts or they're really impressed. Either way, they stop talking to me about it. So I give that to you as my gift as you're heading into the holiday season and getting those questions. Feel free to steal it or use it as it's appropriate to you. Welcome, and I hope you have a great first meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Christina, will you want to give us the safety tailboard?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Safety is very important here at CPS Energy, and just like every other meeting that we do, we're going to do a safety tailboard. So we are at 500 McCullough Avenue. You are in grid room number 3. We'll ask that you look around and see if there's any safety impediments around you. We see bags, chairs, other people. Just so you know, there's an exit at the back of the room here and on the other side, as well as these doors that are open. The bathrooms are behind us, should any of you need to go. And in case of an emergency, who here would be available to dial 911? KJ? KJ Feder, we're gonna put that down. Who can direct the emergency responder? Dominique, okay. And who knows how to work the AED? We have, okay. And CPR, who is CPR certified and can administer CPR while we wait for the paramedics? Sarah, thank you, Sarah. And who can handle the fire extinguisher for us should we need it? Lawson.
Do you know where it's located?
We'll make sure that you get that direction.
Let me ask back in the team, who back in our team can handle the fire extinguisher, please?
KJ.
I see Jonathan Tijerina
Okay, thank you.
and cover present hazards.
Okay, we covered present hazards. So now that we've done our safety tailboard, just in case, we hope we never need to use that, but we have that information now documented. Thank you, Ms. Lewis. I will turn this over to Dominique Ramos, our communications specialist, who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dominique. Okay, we're going to turn this meeting over to Christina.
This is the public comment portion of the meeting. Public comment provides an opportunity for members of the public to share thoughts on posted agenda items for this meeting. We will invite pre-registered speakers to speak. They may only address the CIC Committee on CPS Energy related business listed on the posted agenda. Speakers should state their first and last name, the organization or group they represent, and the agenda item of which they will speak. For this meeting, we have 3 in-person speakers. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to speak. William, will you please cue the timer? Our first speaker is Carlos Raymond. Carlos, are you present? Carlos Raymond. We'll move to the second speaker, if that's okay with you, Madam Chair. Yes. Okay. Our second speaker is Didi Balmares. Ms. Balmares.
Good morning. My name is Didi Balmares. I'm a clean energy advocate with the nonprofit Public Citizen. It's good to see that the previous Community Advisory Committee was reformed to this one, and that these quarterly meetings will be open to the public. You'll be providing input on strategic objectives, key initiatives, and other CPS Energy's business activities to the board and management. So while the CIC meetings, or quarterly meetings, are open to the public, the subcommittees aren't, which the lack of transparency, this type of lack of transparency is concerning. CPS Energy will be requesting yet another rate increase in 2025. The rates subcommittee will be providing information regarding rates that all other ratepayers should be provided. For years, community advocates have called on CPS Energy to design rates that encourage conservation and discourage waste, which is critical given the state of our grid and amid the summertime conservation calls. Maybe y'all will take up this charge. If so, the public needs to be informed, and informed beyond what will be publicly available, which is an executive summary of these sessions that will be provided to the board and be posted on the CIC website. I served on the Rate Advisory Committee along with Peter. Dr. Cantu is not here. I think Christopher is not here either. We went through 2 rate increases. We went through a new iteration of the STEP program. We looked at the affordability discount program. And we went through a resource planning process that culminated in the closing of the last dirty coal plant. During these rate increase discussions, we studied the utilities revenue requirements, the cost of service study, all the necessary data needed in a rate case. All of this was done publicly. I hope that this committee will be truly committed to transparency and fully represent your districts and communities outside of the city of San Antonio and reconsider the closed subcommittees. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Belmares. Our next and final speaker will be Deborah Ponce.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Deborah Ponce. I'm the climate justice organizer, also with Public Citizen. I do a lot of my work on the west side of San Antonio and the south, working directly with community. I've been out there handing out weatherization packages for CPS, and I've been in the houses of many people. My request is simple. I will also ask for public subcommittees. Why, you may ask? The reason is the topics are vital right now, and we need to have community engagement. Community, a lot of times, has no idea what's happening at CPS Energy. In order for the community to understand all the hard work that's happening behind the scenes, you need to bring the community along, and so I think it's important to add them and to add a voice for community during these subcommittees. Last, I would like to remind you some of the topics being discussed are rates, finance, and business. And I think it's important to also make our audience, or you, remember that these people are low-income veterans, individuals with health issues. We've got multitudes of older adults in San Antonio and lots of families on limited incomes who often don't have many choices about how much energy they use due to the conditions of their homes. Energy spending in some of these homes is 7 to 10% of their household budget. Well, I've heard seniors, I've been in rooms, Mr. Onofre can tell you about these rooms where people have said they space out their medicine to pay their electric energy bill, and it shouldn't be that way. So as this administration moves forward, the new CPS Energy with Rudy leading, and the new vision, I'm hoping that you'll bring community along. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ponce. Now we will start our program. Our first presenter is Ricardo Luna, Director of Strategic Pricing and Cost Recovery, and Ms. Ana Lozano, Director of Technology and Product Innovation. They'll be talking to you today about our renewable product offerings. Thank you for being here, you guys.
All right, good morning, everyone. Again, Rick Luna. I am the director of our strategic pricing area, and jointly presenting today with Ana Lozano, who heads up our STEP energy efficiency programs and our products team. And this is initiatives we've been working on together. That's why we're presenting as a team. So I want to talk about to you today about an important initiative that we've been working on related to renewable energy programs. We'll talk a little bit about exactly what that means, for customers, what exactly is a renewable program. And we'll talk a little bit about the history of our offering of these programs, and then some updates that we're proposing to some of those. And really today, hoping to get your feedback and your input as members of the community on your thoughts on these programs, things we could do better, things we should consider as we develop this initiative. Okay. So what is a renewable product? These are programs that we offer, and there's a variety of them, where customers have told us that they would like to have renewable energy be a larger part of the service that they receive from us. And so, for example, this could be customers who decide to install solar panels on their home. They could decide to buy into a community solar program that we've developed. They could host a solar system at their home. These are programs we've done over the years. We have a long history, over 20 years of providing these types of programs. Some easier programs we have are, for example, Wintricity, where you can just allocate a portion of your energy to come from solar farms that we purchase energy from. What is common to all of these different types of programs is these are customers who've said they volunteered for these programs. They've actively chosen these programs, but they want to go above and beyond in terms of their participation in renewable energy. And when we say above and beyond, all customers benefit from the renewable energy that CPS purchases on behalf of the community. But these are customers who actively want to, do more than that, right? And so, again, if you're going to install solar panels on your home, you're going to directly receive the benefit of that on your energy bill. So that's what a renewable product is. Again, we've got a long history of offering these. Our intention has always been to try to offer a variety of programs that meet all of the different needs of our customers, knowing that, we've got customers who own a home, we've got folks who live in apartments, we've got folks who have discretionary income, others who don't. And so we've tried to fashion a set of programs that meet those needs. One of the things that I want to make sure I hit everything here. Okay, I think I did. I'm gonna hand it off to Anna now. One of the, we presented this to the subcommittee, the CIC rate subcommittee, about a month ago. One of the feedback that we got is, we really need to talk about, what the benefit is to customers. And so the other thing we got was, keep it short. I think we had a lot of slides, so we've tried to condense that. And so, but certainly ask questions as we go along here. But I'm going to hand it over to Anna to talk about the customer perspective.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate that. And so to Rick's point, everything that we develop, offerings, services, products, right, are all based on feedback we receive from our community and customers. And we try to develop offerings that help meet their individual and unique needs. And so thanks to the feedback we received, we really wanted to ensure that we talk about the value drivers for customers. Why is it important to them? Why would we do this? Why do customers voluntarily opt to participate in these programs? And it's a variety of reasons. So everything on here are items that we've heard from customers, small businesses, large C&I customers, residential customers who both own, rent. And so these are a list of them. Some of them, right, customers just want to go green and they want to do their part to reduce their carbon footprint. And the programs we're going to talk about today help enable them to do just that. We have heard more and more from our large commercial industrial customers who have really aggressive sustainability goals, right? And they're looking for opportunities to partner to help them reach these goals. And so the programs that we're going to talk about today will help them achieve those goals, in addition to customers who are looking for certain accreditation for their buildings, such as LEED certified accreditations. And, do you have... Thank you. And as Rick said, please feel free to stop us at any time. So why are we here today? Together, our teams, Rick leads our pricing team, I lead our product development team. Together, we have developed a portfolio of offerings to help meet the needs of our customers. Everything we're going to talk about today is open and available to all of our customers, small businesses, large C&I, commercial, industrial, residential customers who own, who rent. All of our customers can participate in one of these offerings. They're all voluntary, but if they're looking for any of the value drivers that we talked about right before this, these are good offerings for them. And so what we are going to talk about is, one, our Wintricity program. Has anybody ever heard of that program? You will make a few people very happy in this room if you have. Okay. Well, it's an existing program, and it was really popular, 10, 15 years ago. And then, so we enabled customers to opt into a Wintricity program where they could, and we'll talk a little bit more about it, opt into a renewable product offering. And that is what we had for all of our customers, residential, small, large, commercial. We haven't promoted it as much because we've really focused on other programs that help enable customers invest in renewables. Rick mentioned community solar, rooftop solar, all of our energy efficiency programs. But what we're looking to do is rebrand it, relaunch it, re-engage customers, and start offering that again. We are very creative in this space, and so for customers who are interested not just in supporting wind, but solar, we have created a new offering called Solartricity. So that is something that we would like to talk about and launch under this portfolio of programs. And so it's very similar to Wintricity, except it's for customers who feel very strongly in supporting solar as a renewable energy. And then Rick is going to talk a little bit more about what we're doing to enhance and rebrand also an existing offering for our largest commercial customers called our LCP Green Initiative. Whoops, what else do we have? And again, right, all of these initiatives under this portfolio that we're going to launch of renewable energy products have been developed all based on feedback we've heard from our customers. So Wintricity. Wintricity, again, launched, I don't know, 2008, 2010, maybe before that. And it was very popular. And you think about what our space looked like back then, right? It's very different than it looked today. But we had customers that were enrolling voluntarily, paying just a little bit extra to support renewable energy and to claim and proudly claim that they were Wintricity participants. We know this because I think one of our team members just walked around his neighborhood the other day and saw a customer still had a yard sign that said they were proudly still participating in Wintricity. So we haven't promoted it as much, but even today, without promoting it, right, if nobody in this room has heard of it, we still have about 4,000 customers still participating in it. And 90% of those customers are residential customers who are okay paying just a little bit more because it's meaningful to them. And so our goal is to relaunch it, re-engage. And so customers, we want to make all of these offerings as flexible to customers as possible, right? So there's no long-term commitment. Customers can opt to support in blocks here, $5, $20, $40. Commercial customers can participate based on a percentage. They can offset all of their consumption if they would like to. Our goal is always to be as flexible as possible and make it easy for customers to participate. And as I mentioned, in addition to Wintricity, we are looking to offer a new offering called Solartricity. So now you've heard of both Wintricity and Solartricity. Again, there are customers who feel very strongly about supporting solar, right? But we all know solar is a great offering. Sometimes you need a roof. Sometimes you need upfront costs, right, and investment. Well, this is just another offering for customers who want to support solar as a renewable energy. And so it will look very much like Wintricity, except it will be supporting solar. And, yep. Yes, please.
So when you say support, do you mean that I have an option to opt for a portion of my electricity, my energy consumption to be drawn from either wind or solar?
You can. And so we don't have, because we can talk about this all day long.
Okay.
We condensed it, but I will say, so it's a penny more. For Wintricity, it's a penny more per kilowatt hour.
Okay.
Right? And so you would offset your consumption if it was $5, $10. And so that energy, right, what we're saying is that energy that you're receiving is from a wind farm, one of our wind farms. For customers who are interested in being able to certify that, hey, my energy came from wind, we can offer something at the end of the year that says we've retired these RECs, the renewable energy credits, that validate that that energy was renewable.
Okay, thank you.
Is that helpful? Yeah.
So it sounds like Wintricity is going to be rebranded, I guess. Solartricity is new.
It is.
Is there going to be any difference in the pricing and how it's structured? And then second question is, why don't you just call it renewables instead of Wintricity, Solartricity? Because we don't really know if it's wind or solar. It's really renewables, right? It could be any renewable.
Well, we know that it is. And so there is a price difference. What we're proposing is a penny and a half for solar, which is a little more expensive than our long-term wind contracts, and a penny for wind. Yes. Great questions.
Sorry about that. So we've talked about Solartricity, Wintricity. The other update we want to talk about this morning is to what we call the LCP green rate. So LCP stands for Large Commercial Power. And this was a rate that was designed in 2020 for our largest commercial customers who had an interest in procuring energy from a large-scale solar or wind farm. This is a trend that's been occurring across the country where you have corporate customers who say, hey, you know, we're committed to renewables, we're committed to redoing our greenhouse gas emissions. And so we want to have renewables coming from a resource directly to our facility to serve our needs. Actually doing that requires a mechanism that is consistent with our regulatory framework, because ultimately we need to be the provider of energy to those customers. And so we developed this rate as a mechanism to be able to do that. We don't have any customers on this rate today. There's a number of reasons for that. And so we've been out meeting with customers over the last couple of months, getting feedback on what their interests are, what other programs are out there across the country at other utilities, and then taking that feedback to develop a proposal to modify the rate that we have in place today. So what we're proposing here are changes to a rate that we think make it more an attractive option for customers. A couple things I want to just point out is that this is really intended for large-scale customers. Again, this is direct purchase power agreements with solar or wind farms. They could be located anywhere across the state. And these are meant to be long-term contracts. And so, it's not for everyone. It's purposely designed for early adopters who have, staffs of folks who are comfortable in the energy market and would be comfortable in this type of an arrangement. And so the qualifying criteria, we've listed them here, basically are for our largest customers, over 5 megawatts. That's a pretty good sized customer that would be eligible for this rate. So just a little bit more about it. This is just a visual of how this works. And you'll see there on the left, we've got a customer who is committed to renewable energy for the long term, and they're willing and ready to sign a contract that says, I want my energy to come from such and such utility scale project. CPS Energy, we're right there in the middle. We're coordinating, we're facilitating, we're able to make this arrangement occur. Of course, we buy energy as part of our daily course of business. So this is something that's familiar to us. But here we would be doing it on behalf of a customer that would be 100% committed to taking that energy. And then on the far side, you see this is a resource, right, out there in the market. It could be local, it could be across the state that would be delivering that energy. And then we would, of course, be taking that under a contract for the long term. So this is, again, designed to be consistent with the way that we do business. It meets our regulatory requirements, and where we continue to be the sole provider of energy to that customer. So that's a critical piece of the arrangement. What we are proposing to do is to keep the structure as it is. We think that works, and it's very similar. There are other utilities that offer these types of programs. We've studied those. We think the framework is good, but the feedback we've had is that we needed to revisit some of the terms in the agreement that were a little bit inflexible, and so we're proposing to make some adjustments there, as well as on the pricing side. When we designed this rate, we designed it to be full cost recovery, which is to say that we wanted to make sure that the customer who gets on this program pays all of their cost, and that's something that we still hold firm to. However, the difference is that we now recognize, 4 years later, that there is value in having customers sign up for this program. It actually frees up capacity. When we're talking about large customers, this does free up capacity. That has value, and so we are proposing to adjust the demand charges on this rate slightly downward to reflect that value, and we think it'll make it a more attractive rate and drive some adoption from customers. So, any questions on this before I move on? Yes, sir.
Yeah, just a couple of things I'm watching for in your presentations here is we as agencies, and I've done this myself too, we get caught up in acronyms. And so I'm making a note every time you define an acronym. So LCP is large commercial
Power.
Power. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Also, I'm wondering about, one of the things I'm really interested in is commercial developments coming in and actually developing separately from CPS their own source of power for at least part of their operation. Does this allow for that?
This allows for arrangements where we are in the middle. We are involved as the conduit to getting the power from the resource to the customer. Now, customers can build resources behind their meter. So, for example, solar, they can develop solar on their property. If that's behind their meter, they can develop that. But you may have something different in mind. So maybe
one of our big concerns is the very large users of energy, like the data centers and the crypto mining operations and that sort of thing. And just from my standpoint, I would like to encourage those types of business that are severe users of our power to be creative in working with you in generation of new energy sources to power those operations.
Right. And so I think that this is one tool to enable that kind of creativity where a customer, and this is what we've seen, so these types of arrangements have worked for data centers in other parts of the country where, again, if they're motivated by renewable energy, this is a mechanism to allow that to happen and allow them to be creative. So I think, this may not always be the solution, but I think it's one part of the toolkit that helps us to do some of that.
Mr. Luna, question about whether other utilities in Texas are providing similar models to this one, and what has a win look like for them?
The models that we've seen where we've had, there have been wins along this type of a structure have actually been in other states. And again, I think a lot of it starts with a motivated customer who, is committed to renewables, is willing to take on the risk associated with these types of arrangements. Because there is risk. You're basically saying, I am willing to sign a long-term contract to have my energy come from that resource. And there will be times when the sun isn't shining and the wind isn't blowing. And so you've got to make accommodations for that, which entails some risk. And so it's not every customer that's willing to do that. But where there have been those types of customers, we have seen wins. And the outcome of that has been a long-term agreement that works for everybody. And I think we've tried to build a structure here that can work for everybody, including the community, because the outcome for the community is you have more renewable adoption, right? And you have, lower emissions, and all of that is consistent with our long-term objectives.
Yeah, Rick and I, thanks for the presentation thus far. A little creative, but just wanted to factor in, could it correlate to, or is there a benefit to a community solar for LMI, where there can be an investment there based on the program benefit? Could that be considered?
So let me ask Anna to talk about LMI, and I don't think it fits in this model, but we've got multiple models for that reason, right? Maybe you want to talk about that.
Yes, and that's a great question, and I know we've talked about that. Separate from this are some of our other solar initiatives. So community solar, we know we've solicited, right, up to 50 megawatts of community solar, and the goal of that solicitation was to help reduce barriers for our LMI customers. Still in the process, so can't talk too much about it, but what we're hoping, right, our goal is that offering is a great fit for our LMI customers in the community.
And just
LMI,
real quick.
Low to moderate income customers, LMI.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm so sorry.
And just very quickly, can you give an example of how the community solar could work as an example to a LMI customer where they would access it without the rooftop? And I think that's part of the equation, correct?
Sure, yes. So community solar, there are a couple of different models. We've had 2 successful programs in the past. They have been private ownership where customers are able to purchase panels at an off-site location, and we partner with a third party all through a solicitation. The third party has leases, property leases, they maintain, they manage, but we buy all of the energy that's generated. And so for those customers who purchased panels, I could buy 1 panel, right? CPS Energy would credit on my bill for the production of that 1 panel that I own. There are still some barriers. I think it's a great solution for customers who rent, who don't own, who don't want to maintain a solar system or invest. The average size of a system is 9 kW. Average cost could be about $4. That's $36,000 up front, right? We know those are barriers. So another model is a subscription model, and we've seen that work in other parts of the country. And so for LMI, our low to moderate income customers, it helps reduce those barriers, the upfront costs, the home ownership. You know, sometimes they rent, they move, and so they could subscribe into a program, get the benefit of the generation that's produced. And so that's something that could work for our low to moderate income customers, and something we're considering.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Great question. Yes.
So I maybe taking a step back. I'm trying to make sure I really understand this, because it's not carbon offset credits or anything like that. I'm actually changing, and wind and solar are already part of the mix anyway, but I'm changing the ratio as if I sign up for this, I'm changing the ratio of my personal mix.
That's right.
And when people sign up, is there a way to understand how that changes? Is it 100%? Is it 80%? And is there a backup in the event of severe weather, in the event of, you know, do I have a way to ensure that, like you said, it's not as dependable necessarily, but in the event of severe circumstances, am I insured in some way that I'm going to continue to have power?
I think two different offerings, right? So for Windtricity and Solartricity, as a residential or any participant in that program, you're receiving energy from CPS Energy, right? That doesn't change. So if the wind farm goes down, right, we're still supplying you with energy. But what we do is validate that what you have subscribed. So if you say, I want all of my consumption every month to come from wind, and you can do that, and so that offsets all of your consumption. You can proudly say that all of the energy I used this month came from a renewable source. At the end of the year, we can give you something that certifies that. If you're a business, that's very valuable, right, to some businesses. We can do that. I think it's a little different if you're one of our large customers in the program that Rick is talking about. I mean, there's just contingencies, right? Right. Were you interested in the Windtricity, Solartricity mix?
I want to echo some of my colleagues' comments that, and I get this is presentation mode, not public-facing mode, but this is a public meeting, and so
yeah.
I'm just concerned about what the end user will see in bringing and dumbing it down, and I shouldn't even use that terminology, but just making it as, you know, we know that when we put out anywhere, no matter what the organization is third grade reading level, and just making sure that it's clearly communicable to people that this is what you have, this is what every customer has, this is what changes when you sign up for this is what changes when you sign up for that.
Yeah, no, we appreciate that, and we do get stuck in acronyms a lot, and so thank you for that feedback. As far as for all of them, CPS Energy is delivering the energy, right? Solartricity, Windtricity, solar farm goes down, wind farm goes down, your energy is not interrupted. It's not. But this is voluntary, so in addition to what you pay CPS Energy, if you want to dedicate and say that all of my energy is coming from a renewable source, there's that adder that you will pay every month to be able to proudly claim that. But good question, yes.
Okay, now I see how you're going to be publicizing in this respect, the website, the events, and any phone calls. What about a media blitz? Is there going to be anything in television commercials?
That's a great
or anything
question.
like that?
Who changed the slide? Okay. So outreach is very important to us, right? And again, going back to what we've said, we want to be as flexible for customers to participate. We want to make it as easy as possible for customers to participate. So these are some of the ways that we plan to engage one-on-one with our customers, right? Website, we don't have it launched yet because we haven't officially launched, but there will be a website and a link dedicated with all of the information. Customers can sign up on their own through our website. We are at community events. KJ and her team, we are out all the time. And so we will have team members on our team who can talk to customers about this at all of our events. And then we'll have a dedicated phone line. We do have it now, it's not up here, but a phone number, easy to remember, customers can call us directly. One of our team members, a real person, will answer and talk with folks. In addition to that, what we heard, right, and what we do is engage with our stakeholders. And so not just one-on-one with our customers, but we heard maybe our builders associations, our chambers of commerce, right, really get the word out. We talked about rebranding. This is a new portfolio of offerings. And so I related to, we have a, like our Save Now portfolio of offerings. Those are all of our energy efficiency programs. We have a solar offering. Why did it escape me? Solar program offering, solar. Simply Solar, oh my goodness, if my team is watching, that's so embarrassing. Simply Solar has all of our solar offerings, so community solar, solar host, rooftop solar. We will have something very similar for our renewable energy product offerings. So we'll have branding for the entire umbrella of offerings, and then each one will have a recognizable brand, and then our corporate communications team will really help us get the word out. So hopefully next time we see you and we ask, everybody would have seen something about one of these programs. Thank you. Yes.
It seems like there should be a very simple statement at the beginning of this program when you present it. It's very clear that this is an optional program that will cost you additional money. If you stay with standard CPS rates, it'll cost X. This will cost you X plus Y. So I think the question on the folks who do not participate in this program, well, how does this affect me? How does this affect the rates that I will pay, particularly the lower income folks? Will this system work to subsidize some of the basic rates for the lower income folks in CPS? How should the average citizen interpret what you're trying to do here?
So I think there's a couple pieces to that question. I mean, I think for the Wintricity and Solartricity programs, you are going to pay extra. You're going to pay a premium to be able to designate part of your energy to be renewable. With other programs, for example, if you put a solar system on your roof, eventually you're going to save, money doing that. It's going to take some years because obviously there's upfront costs. I think a lot of our programs are like that where, you will eventually save, and so you're making an investment today. In the case of the large scale program, again, there's risk associated with that, and part of the risk is you may end up paying more. So, so again, it varies by program, but I think to your larger point that we've got to be very clear with customers about what you're signing up for, and making sure that, we don't, make false promises, right? And that everything can be shown and proven. And so I think that, this has all been really good feedback for us. I think, how we explain this, making it simple for customers. We heard that at the subcommittee too. And so, we're working our way towards that. By the time that we launch these, we hope that we'll have a clean, simple message that's clear on what's involved for our customers.
Hi.
Yes, sir.
So kind of to this point that Steve was making, everybody who buys electricity pays some portion for CPS's renewable offering, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So why should Wintricity or Solartricity pay more? Where does the 1 cent per kilowatt hour come from? How does that compare to the actual cost of generation and distribution? Because we know that solar and wind are cheaper, or they at least should be cheaper. And shouldn't that go down over time for customers who choose to, because of a commitment to environmental stewardship, shouldn't it go down for them over time if they have continued this commitment to environmental sustainability? And also the LCP model, how does that compare to something like a feed-in tariff that other countries have adopted? Because ultimately, the goal is not to just feel good about paying extra for renewable, it's to increase adoption, right?
Right.
So, everybody, like going back to my point, everybody who pays our bill, we have some mix of renewable. So we're all in a sense paying for it in some way. So why should the Wintricity people pay more when it's actually, they're potentially subsidizing more for other people who aren't in the program, right?
Right. So there's let me start with the last piece of that. I mean, I think, feed-in tariff, the way those work is basically utility says, we're willing to pay X for, any energy you bring us that's renewable, and then that goes to serve customers. The difference with LCP Green is this is an individual customer saying, I'm committed to doing renewable, and we'll sign a contract that commits them to purchase energy from a resource. So it's a different model. But again, those customers, full awareness of what they're getting into, are willing to take on that risk to be on that program. with regard to your question about windtricity and solartricity, yeah, you're right. I mean, all customers today get the benefit of the renewables that we purchase on behalf of the community and that are part of our generation mix. The customers who get onto these programs are customers who say, hey, I want to go in above and beyond that. And so it's not for everybody, right? Today it's 4,000 customers. At one time, I think, we had like 10 or 12,000 customers. So it's not for everybody, but they're willing to pay extra because they're committed to renewables, and that's something that they want to be able to proclaim, or they may have a goal or a sustainability initiative that they're trying to reach, and this is a mechanism for them to do that. So are we getting close to the end? Okay, so happy to talk afterwards. I don't think I got to all of your questions, but I think ultimately it's true of all of these programs that we want to find customers who this is something that they're interested in, and making sure then we explain it to them and find a match with what we're providing. So let me just transition real quick to my last slide. So we're presenting, of course, here today on October 9th for the LCP green rate, because that is a change to a rate that requires board and council approval. And so right now we've tentatively slated that for November, and then council after that, December, January, still to be determined. But that would be the approval path on those requirements. And in terms of solartricity and windtricity, we have a rider that enables us to make these offerings. This would require, or it doesn't require, we don't think it requires modifications. We think we have the authority to be able to do this already, but we're talking to the city, and we'll verify that. But anyway, wanted to just share with you sort of the path that we're on, so you see, kind of the role that you're playing in this process. So with that, I think we're out of time. Are we good? Okay. Any final questions? Yeah.
I just wanted to give some feedback. Thank you guys for condensing this. For those that don't know, if there was a lot of acronyms now, there was even more during the subcommittee meeting. And so I'm glad that you guys took the feedback seriously. I really do appreciate it. Looking at the timeline and just kind of hearing some of the feedback that we, from the larger committee, I will make the recommendation within the motion, but I think that there's an opportunity. We have an additional subcommittee meeting in between now and when this goes to the board. I think that there are elements of this that the subcommittees can absolutely help massage when it comes to messaging, when it comes to how we're looking at some of the technology pieces of this, et cetera. And so that's kind of where my look is in this next step, is that there unfortunately, I think that there's an additional bullet point here for the timeline to ensure that some of these other questions don't have holes in them, and we can fill those before it goes to the board. So that's just kind of, I know that you have some thoughts, so before I make a motion, I'll give you an opportunity for that.
Just a quick, it doesn't necessarily require feedback. I know we're getting short on time, but just a suggestion, because I liked Dr. Villarreal's comment about shouldn't this in an ideal world be not more expensive, but considering the changes in the generation plan over the next 15, 25 years, is that something to consider, is how this could be, a certain amount of commitment could level this out. That if a customer could be committed to this for X number of years, that maybe they could decrease or it could diminish over time, because it's helping push that new mix into reality by investing more in it. I don't know if that makes sense, but just a thought.
All right. So again, thank you guys so much. I know that there was a lot of discussion around this in our subcommittee meeting, and this is definitely a lot more digestible than the first one. The first presentation was incredibly overwhelming, so I really appreciate you guys talking about this in a way that was a lot more easy to process. With that said, Madam Chair, I'm going to make a motion that prior to this going to the Board of Trustees, that we send particular or the respective portions of this to the subcommittees for further discussion, and then we come back to this. I don't know what the official language is, if there has to be any special language for this. Okay.
Okay, the chair recognizes the motion to table this before it goes to the BOT. Is there a second? Second. second? Peter seconds it. We have a second. Thank you.
I think now we can open for questions on the motion, right?
Yeah, a quick question. When you said subcommittees, it sounds like it really needs to go back to your subcommittee to drill down into a little more of the details. Is that correct?
I think it needs to go to all three. So there are some comms pieces to this that I think that we need some clarification on. How are we, like, not just how are we going to get the message out, but what that message is going to look like for the specific target groups that we're working on, especially when it comes to the LCP Green, which I like this name a lot better than the first name. I also would like to see, we had discussed in the subcommittee meeting, a comparison of the two different programs with the redlining in there and just highlighting and emphasizing the differences in this new program or this upgraded program versus what was previously in place. I'd like to see that as well. I was hoping to see it prior to getting to this as far as being able to review it as a larger committee. So there's a comms piece to it. I think also when we're talking about the website, we're talking about, the technology behind it, there's that piece to it as well. So there are elements of this that I think do not solely belong to my committee. But I think that my committee can still further the discussion of what's, how we're putting it all together. But I would like to have, again, I don't like working in an echo chamber, so which is why I think that it's critical that we talk to the other subcommittees that are focused on some of these other areas and elements.
Yeah, so I support the motion to have this additional meeting of the subcommittees. And I think from the perspective of the Power and Technology Subcommittee, I would like an answer to my question that I just asked a moment ago about the cost of generation and how this surcharge is determined. That may seem like a rates question, but it's actually both. I would also ideally like to hear some of the feedback that you'll have received from the Winter City and the LCP customers. I mean, you talked a little bit about it, but I would like some explicit examples as well. So cost breakdown vis-a-vis technology and the generation cost, distribution, et cetera, feedback, explicit feedback from the customers. I would like to see that.
I will say, and I've said this to you guys in our previous conversation, but I'd like to make this a public statement. I think that there are some really good opportunities with these programs, and I want this to be a successful program, which is why I think that I don't want this to be a half-baked thought or leave any opportunity for misinterpretation of the programs and where we're at with it, which is why I want to ensure that we have the most feedback as we possibly can to ensuring that this is a successful program, because there were some errors in the first go-round for this, right? And so I don't want to see a lot of time and investment made into something that may end up just dropping before it gets to City Council or the Board of Trustees. So as one of our responsibilities as a committee, it's imperative that we ensure that we give as much feedback as possible so you guys can be successful and the City of San Antonio can be successful.
Any other input? Questions? Christina? Okay, that's the end of the discussion for this presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rick and Anna, for the presentation. We're going to go ahead and move on to our second presentation, and that will be on Horizon 2050. Our presenter will be Jonathan Tijerina, who is the Vice President of Corporate Development.
Chris, are we going to vote? No, we didn't vote.
We didn't vote. Okay,
We got the second from Alan for the motion. Motion passes? Does anybody second it? Second? Peter.
We need
Okay.
a vote.
Could somebody repeat the motion?
So the motion is that prior to going to Board of Trustees, my motion is that it goes to the respective elements of this presentation go to the respective subcommittees for further discussion and review prior to Board of Trustees.
Would it come back to the CIC before it goes to the board?
We don't have a CIC meeting in between that.
No.
Once you have that meeting, you may have to, in subcommittees, make a recommendation there.
Okay, we had a
Hold-
second
hold
motion.
on, hold on. We have.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kathy Garcia. I'm Vice President of Government Relations here. I do want to just come back around that what the board is looking for is your input, but they have not directed us to have a vote up or down on the tariff itself. So I think we definitely want to accommodate the time that it will take to get you the information that you're looking for. You've given us really good feedback, so we want to incorporate that. And I think what Chris was suggesting is that we utilize the subcommittees in November to take another look at that. We'll capture it in the executive summaries so it does become known, and then the board can then move forward. Does that sound okay? All right.
Thank you, Kathy. That's
Okay,
exactly
we're
what
going to turn
I
it
was-
over to Christina then.
Okay.
All in favor?
Do we need to vote on it?
Yes.
Okay, all right. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion passes.
Okay. So our next presentation again is Jonathan Tijerina, and he's going to speak to you about Horizon 2050.
Great, thanks, Chris, and good afternoon, everyone. Nice to meet you, and appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today about Horizon 2050. First, I should start by saying first my utter thanks for you all being here today, for your volunteerism, and for being on this committee. We really look forward to future conversations, and I think what you saw from the previous presentation is already the value added that comes to us when we can have this type of dialogue with our community. So really appreciate you all being here and for your volunteerism. Second thing I want to do is she sends her apologies. You were actually supposed to hear from Elena Ball, who is my boss, the Chief Strategy Officer, but unfortunately she's out of the office this week, so unfortunately you're stuck with me. My name is Jonathan Tijerina. I'm the Vice President of Corporate Development, and I'm in the strategy office here at CPS Energy. And so I'm going to be talking to you today about our journey that we're undertaking with regards to Horizon 2050, Horizon 2050. And so let me jump to the next slide. Am I driving? I'm sorry. I am driving. All right, even better. All right, so you'll see here that I'm starting off with the stakeholder engagement timeline that started in September 23, but I kind of want to go back in time a little bit to kind of really frame the context here. You got to go back in time to almost November of 2021 when Rudy Garza was named interim CEO of CPS Energy. He undertook the first task from our current, at the time, our board chair, Dr. Willis Mackey, to set up a 5-year plan that the organization can go and implement. From those discussions, from the dialogue, we created what is known as the Vision 2027, which is a 5-year look at the organization that included both strategies regarding the future of power generation, the future around our technology to implement and provide services from an ERP standpoint, which is the Enterprise Resource Planning project that is under flight, as well as what we were going to do to kind of rebuild our relationships with the community. Because if you recall, we were coming out of the era of Winter Storm Uri and all of the lessons learned that came out of that activity from February of 21. It's hard to believe, 3 years later, we're in flight, right? We have done, as you all probably are aware, the last 18 months have probably been some of the more exciting time periods here at the organization with regards to adding more mix to our renewable portfolio, adding baseload generation with the acquisition of what was formerly known as the Talent Energy Resources down in Corpus Christi and Laredo, in addition to recent announcements as recently as 2 weeks ago when we announced an additional 350 megawatts of energy storage solution. So we are well in flight into doing a lot of things that we said we would be doing as part of that effort. And your predecessor committees, were all involved in those conversations and kind of helping shape that future. In addition to that, we've also implemented and started I keep calling it Enterprise Resource Plan, which is that ERP system, which is the technology transformation. We are well into flight with our procurement process to find an implementer who's going to help us implement the technology that will go into there. You probably have heard the tagline, right, or the unfortunate tagline, I should say. Our current system is like equivalent to running like a Windows 1995 version, right? So it's very outdated and needed to have its upgrades. So I give that as a foundation as to where we were and kind of where we're at current state. When you look at the current state, the analogy that I like to use a lot is if you were to go bring back from the dead Alexander Bell, the person who created the phone, he would see all those devices on our tables and say, what the heck is that? That's not the phone I designed. If you were to go bring back Thomas Edison from the dead, he would see our system and say, hey, this is exactly what I designed. I got power generation, I got poles and wires, and I got a customer. Well, that is quickly changing, and it is changing very fast for us. We are going through arguably the biggest revolution, if you will, in our industry's history. And we're having to think differently about what the future looks like and how we get there. And so as part of our commitment, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in a second, we started a process to kick off those broader conversations as to what should we look like, what do we want to look like, and what do we think the community is going to want us to look like as we continue to evolve to be an organization that's providing these services to this community. And so in September of 23, well over a year ago, one of Elena's first tasks when she joined the organization, and I should mention she joined in like July of 23, so within 60 days, we started off this process to start figuring out kind of the do's and don'ts, right? Laying the foundation for what we want to be as an organization and maybe what we don't want to be. Since then, we've really spent the last year internally working through various workshops around various trends, headwinds, tailwinds that are happening within the kind of the broader organization or utility industry, really. Not just focused on looking at municipal-owned utility models like ourselves, but also looking at investor-owned utilities and trying to understand how they continue to evolve and what they're doing to meet all of the various demands that are coming towards their business. Fast forward to a year later, which was a month ago now, we had another strategy session with our board where we really laid the framework for what we were doing and ultimately came up to this next slide that I'll talk about. I'm going to flip forward because I think I need to do this to be able to come back. It just feels better for me. So where we're at today is about kicking off the conversation with you all and working through the various committees over the next couple of months to gain your feedback, perspective, knowledge, as we continue to figure out how we want to shape this going into the future. What we're proposing right here really is just a high-level proposal right now. If anyone who has been in any type of business environment, rather, as a business owner, or small business owner, or even just running your own household, you know a 25-year plan is not set in stone. You're going to have to be adaptable. You're going to have to take in new injects as they come to you as you progress. And so what we're trying to do here is kick off the conversation around what is the framework around what are some high-level vision statements, mission statements, and goals that we can use as those kind of true norths for the next 25 years, realizing that ultimately there will be different sub-strategies and initiatives that are formed over the next 25 years. And so if I just walk you real quick from top to bottom, you'll see that the vision for the organization is that we want to be a community empowered for generations. Probably one of the greatest things, if not arguably the greatest thing about being a member of CPS Energy is that we have a long track record of being here for the community, right? Our history goes back well over a century and a half, and I think every person here has every intention of making sure that we make it to the next century and a half. From a mission standpoint, it's to power our community with reliable, sustainable energy at a competitive price. Again, don't get too stuck on the words right now. Right now, it's really more about just putting the thought process into motion so that you can be thinking about what are the right words potentially for us to do as we adjust through this process. But we've heard it very clearly, right? The continued theme from our community, from the various stakeholder events that we do, and I see KJ Fetter here who leads our community engagement team. Her team is actively out in our community on average, right, 7 days a week, right? So in a course of a year, there's thousands of events that we are actively engaging in, talking to our community about all of our products and services. And when you think about that, the feedback that we continue to hear from all of our customers is reliability is king. The best day of our business is when you just flip on the switch and kind of forget about us, because that means you're empowered to do what you need to do from a daily basis. But then it becomes important about what does the mix of our resources look like into the future, right? Do we want a sustainable energy power generation solution? The idea of now having more distributed generation resources, you'll hear this a lot about DG. Distributed generation is the resources that you traditionally see, like if you're building solar or putting a storage unit at your home or business. And then everything has to come at a price, right? We are very cognizant of what our community is and what we're not. And so we have to be always thinking about how we're doing this in a way that is price effective and not overbearing to any particular segment as the process goes. And then you see 5 high-level goals. Again, I really don't want to focus too much on the words because those are going to change. But again, it's to start getting the gears turning, if you will, to have a conversation. But the 5 themes of the goals that I will highlight: reliability, which you've heard and seen in the mission statement; sustainability, which also ties back; the competitive price. But then for internal purposes, we're looking at our financial resiliency, which also is known for a lot of folks as your financial stability, right? If the organization itself is not financially resilient, then it doesn't matter what we do from a strategic perspective, because if you can't afford it and if you're in the red, we won't be this municipally owned utility anymore. And then the second one here is around team and business excellence, and the importance here is twofold. It's not only about making sure that we are actively pursuing the strategies and sub-strategies and initiatives to make sure that the utility is healthy, but at the same time, making sure you have a team that is actively engaged and actively working towards making this place your career. The facts are, the reality of things are, and you may have heard some of these numbers in the last couple of years, about 1/3 of our current organization is retirement eligible between now and the next 24 months. And we're already seeing that trend, right? As many businesses are, folks who are taking that next step into retirement. And so what may be just as important is not only retaining the talent that we have currently, but also being very strategic about the talent we bring on, right? Is it the talent you need for your immediate needs now? Or is it the talent you're going to need to get us into the future as we go through all these processes over the next couple months? And so I'm going to go back now. So from a timeline perspective, our goal is to have various engagement opportunities between now and December. The goal right now is to take possibly a board resolution in early 2025, so looking at Q1 of the next calendar year. Throughout the next couple months, we will be again active in the community, having conversations with various stakeholders and groups. We had a really great, successful event here on site last week. I think it was last Wednesday. I'm sorry, my days get blurred. But we actually had events in the morning from 9 to 11 and then again from 5:30 to 7:30 so that we can be cognizant of folks being able to come in and out. We will continue to do activities like that over the next 2 months where we're having active conversations. Just as importantly, we're doing road shows internally to make sure we're talking to all of our employees about the significance of this. What is significant is not only just the strategic direction we're going, but it's also the reassurance of where we're going to think and how we're going to place or think about placing individuals into future roles that may be different than their current state, right? As you retire traditional power generation assets and go more to like utility scale solar or other alternative solutions that we're looking at, you will not need a coal operator into the future, right? So it's making sure that our employees also have the skill sets and the opportunities for training so that they can have opportunities within the organization because, again, we have a track record of making sure our employees have careers, not just jobs. And so this, again, is just to kick off the conversation with you all. You will work through, we will work with you, through your processes to have the broader conversations and happy to go into deeper dive conversations about initiatives. There will be continued dialogue around this for the next few months, quite honestly, in the next couple of years. I failed to mention we also had a tele-town hall that was well received, I guess just right after the board meeting, now that I think about it, where it was a two-way conversation between Rudy Garza, our CEO, and Elena Baugh, our Chief Strategy Officer, doing the same thing from this perspective, but also having the opportunity for some Q&A there. And so if you don't have access to that link, I'm sure we can share it to you all. It's a public link. It was on our Facebook Live page. And again, timeline perspective, again, is for this to be the kickoff for you all here, for us to have the more in-depth conversations as you all require and request us to go through. And then ultimately, hopefully, getting back in front of our board in some time of early 2025 with a framework proposal around what the next 25 years could look like for this organization. So I'll stop here. Happy to take questions and kind of work through the roundtable. Yeah, Peter.
Yeah. Thank you, Jonathan. And first, I want to applaud you and your team for when you launched 2027, that you did something that you had, from what I understood, CPS hadn't been doing, which was seeking grant funding and there were opportunities there. And I know you've been successful in that process in this short time. And so I have a question related to the strategic plan and the Community Energy Resiliency Program that was granted a grant, right? And with the intent, and here's my follow-up question to the explaining it, but how that plan will have metrics that will show how 65% of that will go toward the disadvantaged community members. And if there's a plan to show that within the 5 year, because it's a 5-year grant implementation, I understand.
Yeah, great question. And I probably should give you a little bit more context of what my teams cover, just so that I think we're all going to become really good friends here. So I also will say, I appreciate the feedback for the previous presentation. So Ana Lozano is actually on my team. She's my Director of Products and Services. The corporate development function has 5 areas right now. We have the Products and Services team, which is Ana's team, who's looking at both the energy efficiency programs as well as these new kind of premium product offerings for customers that meet those current segments. I have my business and economic development team that is tasked with everything that sounds like. So that's the new public-private partnerships, the acquisition of the talent energy assets. That was that team. I have research and innovation, so that's the team that is looking forward-thinking. Quite honestly, we're looking at things 5 to 10 years out. Anything under that kind of timeline, we're kind of wasting time because that's already kind of like into implementation phase. Angela Rodriguez is here, who leads my sustainability and grants team. And then my 5th unit is, after you, in traditional fashion, once you do something good, then they figure out how to do it again. We bought the plants, and then I inherited the integration of the plants. So I have an enterprise transition team that is bringing those assets into the fleet, both from the technology standpoint and the process and employee standpoint. And so to kind of give you that background, what the reason for Peter's question is, we have been successful in receiving federal dollars for resiliency programs and offerings. We were actually the only utility in Texas to receive funding under the first wave of the GRIP grant, and I'm going to mess up the acronym, Grid Resiliency and Innovation Partnership. That sounds right. I'll validate that before I leave. But that's the GRIP grant. We are recipients of a $30.2 million cost-sharing agreement where we are looking at 4 use cases that specifically will bring resiliency and reliability to the substation level. So the substations are the big metal infrastructure, sites that you see throughout our community that usually have like a bunch of transmission lines. This is stuff on the metal concrete wires, not the wooden poles. We're looking at 4 use cases that are going to integrate both energy storage solutions, more automation, distributed generation resources, so again, like solar or like a backup generator, as well as more smart switches. So when that program gets kicked off, as part of the requirements and why we were so successful in receiving those dollars is that we specifically targeted Justice 40 areas and underserved areas within our community. So 4 substations have been targeted that meet those criteria. And as part of the requirements, Peter, we actually have to do a couple things. First is we have to have very, very well rehearsed and executed public engagement in those areas to bring the education and awareness around what we're doing from that perspective. And then second, there are performance metrics that we will have to report on based off of both the public engagement standpoint and then ultimately the success of the use cases. So there will be reports and there will be transparency into that. In the feedback letter that the DOE give us, specifically, they're looking at this particular project as possible learning centers or learning sites for other utilities to go and see that are in the transmission business because it will be somewhat first of its kind from the 4 use case perspective. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yes, thank you very, very much so. And my reason for asking is for advocating for a strategic resiliency plan within that process. I think it's a great opportunity to gather that information and really start to see how all of these incentives are impacting the disadvantaged communities as part of that
Sure.
5-year, but I know we're going 2020 to 2050.
Yep.
But that's what I like to advocate for, is putting that in there for
I think that's great
good
feedback,
data.
and I think for everyone's perspective, the industry is talking about these things continuously. I was actually just in Houston yesterday at Rice University in their business school, talking about the future of energy storage and how that's going to help from a resiliency and strategy perspective. And from here, you know, as you look at the future of both the reliability and sustainability, energy storage will play a big role, right? Because of the enablement that it brings for the usage of solar systems, not just during the day, right? But also harnessing that energy and then using it to charge your battery and then dispatching that battery maybe overnight. Same goes for wind, right? So very much all interconnected, both literally and figuratively in our business models. But yeah, I think that's really good feedback. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Sure.
So under this portion of sustainability, it says diversify our energy resources to provide cleaner energy to all. So under the City of San Antonio Climate Action and Adaptation Plan, the goal is actually emissions reductions of 41% by 2030. And so Rudy Garza has publicly stated a number of times that CPS is bound by the official City of San Antonio policy in terms of greenhouse gas emission reductions. But the sustainability portion here doesn't mention that.
Yeah, I think that's where I would pivot back to maybe not get too focused on the broader language yet. I think that's the type of feedback we're going to be seeking to see what ultimately it will be the overarching goal. Underneath all of these, I think you'll start to see more of the strategic initiatives that we have to do, as well as some of the mandates that are coming, both from federal and state, and then obviously being a participant of the Climate Action Adaptation Plan here for the community. Because as part of that effort as well is the overall power generation strategy that I was speaking to earlier, where it calls for us retiring the coal units by, I'm gonna mess up the date, so I won't say it, but it's 27 or 28, I can't remember right now, I'm sorry. And then transitioning the fleet as we start that process. So while it doesn't say it explicitly, honestly, that's the feedback that we're gonna be seeking. So maybe it should ultimately be out there just bold and out there in very clear lettering. But no hidden agenda here, right? Like we know what our obligations are going to be over the next 10 years, 20 years, and 25 years when it comes from a power generation standpoint. Thanks for that. Is it
Any other questions?
Is it Julian? Julian. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Questions for? Nope.
All right, well, thank you all so much.
Thank you so much for the presentation. We really did get some insightful information from you. I believe Lawson had something she wanted to mention.
Okay, so before we adjourn, I just wanted to give CPS Energy a big shout out and kudos. So recently we just wrapped up our Neighborhoods Together, or Neighbors Together, which is formerly known as National Night Out, and that's what I know it as. And so I had a really great opportunity to talk to all of the CPS Energy folks that were dispersed into some of the neighborhood association gatherings, and even was given a flyer for an upcoming trunk or treat that's on the 12th. So if for those that have young kiddos like myself or grandkids, I have a flyer with me for this if you guys are interested, but I just really wanted to just applaud. I really had some great conversations with not just folks that are part of the community outreach team, but also some folks that are with the linemen's, and we talked about safety and even got invited on a ride-along, which I'm really excited about because they were really excited that I actually own a pair of steel-toe boots and some safety goggles. And so I just wanted to applaud you guys because I know a lot of the conversations that I'm hearing in neighborhoods and in the community, it revolves around safety. We're talking about, you know, these folks are at the front line and they get the brunt of not just the physical vulnerabilities, but also hearing a lot of the concerns and the stresses that the community is hearing and seeing, right? Especially when it comes to bills and rate increases. So a big shout out to CPS Energy for being out at these events. Like I said, I know that all of us have to attend community engagement and community meetings, so there is a trunk or treat, and this one has candy, so you can't say no to candy. So that's just my selfish plug. I just wanted to give some kudos.
Anything from Christina? Okay, well, we've run out of time, and so we're going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting. I'm sorry we don't have time for roundtable or anything like that, but this meeting is adjourned.